Good morning, everybody. How are we doing? Happy Friday the 13th. What could possibly go wrong? Very glad you have decided to step away from watching Olympic curling to instead learn about irrigation, right? This is Jeremiah, and we have a fantastic webinar. We are going to learn all the good stuff about getting going with irrigation effects, covering all the basics. This is the premier content for getting going with it. Barely an hour, you're going to know everything. So why am I yabbering, right? You want to get going. Super quick housekeeping items. This is live right now. So you can ask us questions along the way. That's that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I recommend clicking that right now. Get that question and answer box situated on your screen because you're also going to be able to see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So it's a great little companion while you're watching this live with us. We got our whole irrigation team here. A lot of people signed up for this. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. Don't be shy about typing in questions. We really appreciate that interactiveness. We want to hear from you. And this is being recorded, so you are going to have this to refer back to and share with everybody. And yeah, put on the fridge, right? You have a smart fridge, play it on the smart fridge. Perfect place for this weapon. Okay, enough of my yammering, huh? Hey, Cole is ready to take this away.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm excited here to present to you this Getting Started with Irrigation FX webinar. We got a lot of stuff to cover today, and we're gonna, be moving along quickly here. But as Jer said, make sure to get your questions in. Also, after the webinar is posted to our website, there will be links that you'll find on these slides for different aspects where you can go and learn more about things that we have to, kind of quickly touch on, but aren't able to fully dive into. So make sure to check that out as well. So this is me. I am I guess a irrigation usage support person here at LandFX. Um, yeah, nothing too exciting here, just a picture of me, but this is what we're going to be covering today. Um, we're going to go kind of getting to know your irrigation design resources. So kind of learning where you're going to learn the basics of irrigation design, because that's basically step one. We're going to look at how do you know your requirements for like a site, for a project, for something. Move into like a typical workflow for the irrigation design with land effects. We'll take a look at something super important called units and scale, how that reflects in the program and how it, kind of controls everything, how things plot and all that fun stuff. Take a look at irrigation symbols, some time-saving shortcuts. We'll pause for some questions, then we'll move into like a demonstration in CAD and kind of show you guys how things work. So here's our resources to review. So like I said, step one, obviously, if you are not familiar with irrigation design, is just going to be learning irrigation design basics. So in order to do that, there's lots of resources online. You can take classes through the Irrigation Association. Hunter and Rainbird, other manufacturers offer these types of classes as well. I believe there's, on-site ones, there's ones online. So you just find something that works for you and your team and learn the steps of irrigation design basics first. After that, always make sure to check out our website. We have lots of awesome documentation, articles on all the features in the program, lots of different webinars on things and power tips, which are short videos that kind of go over different topics. A big one too is the LandFX trainer, specifically the irrigation one for this because we're talking about irrigation, but we have a fantastic irrigation program, trainer program. It works right in CAD and kind of helps you along the way of learning how to, do these things that I'm going to discuss. So getting to know your requirements. So basically, as irrigation design is going to have site requirements. It's going to have a client requirement. There's, different city government requirements. There's all kinds of things that, will make your design it how it's going to function, basically, how you need it to function. So that kind of involves Um, Getting to know the site, getting to know your clients, what they want. Um, the people who are going to be ultimately running the system have certain wants and needs. It could be certain things like plant requirements, the site itself, if it's you know, a big uh, windy site or hilly site, those all have different requirements that you'll have to plan for and in choosing your products that you're using and how you're piping things, all kinds of stuff like that. So that goes back to the irrigation design basics of learning. So this is kind of like gather your information on your requirements first and choose these in a way that's going to be installed and function the way that you want it to. So again, yeah, talking about the application types. So are you required to use, drip in certain areas or spray heads, rotaries, rotors, all kinds of different things, what type of pipe you're going to use. All these things play into the design. So just get to know that stuff at the beginning. Uh, it's where you need to start for sure. Another thing to become familiar with is performance charts. So understanding how to read these and what they mean is going to help you choose the right equipment for your project. So you can see here, I have a friction loss chart up for a PVC class 200 pipe. Um, all different types of pipes have different friction loss and velocity charts. So it's important to know how to read these, and it's important to be able to, decipher them and choose your equipment and your zoning in a way that your pipe will be sized how you want it to. Um, so this is kind of just like how our system will size the pipe is based on these charts. It's using for the Hayes and Williams formulation to um, basically size your pipe for you automatically, but it's important to know these things and how they work so you're not ending up with, massive pipe sizes or pipe sizes way too small um, for your design, as well as, we can move into these different performance charts I have an example here. It's a Greenbird 5000 rotor. So you can see the blue chart on the left is just their standard nozzle chart. And then I have some MPR nozzle charts on the right, which represents match precip rate. So just learning how to decipher these again is just very important, and it's going to help you along the way. So we're going to move in here to a typical workflow for irrigation design. Step one in CAD is going to be your project and sheet setup. So basically, gathering your information, making your sheet setup, setting up your project. This is all stuff that we're going to cover a little bit later as well, but just that's usually step one. Then we're going to be determining your water source or sources, determining your irrigation types and applications. Again, that's going back to what heads you're using or drip or what types of valves and those types of things. And then you're going to start placing them into the drawing itself. After that, we go into zoning or circuiting, which is just determining how you're going to group your equipment together for different zones in the design. And we have a couple different tools for that will help you along the way with that. After that, you're going to want to pipe things. After piping, very important step here is to verify your design. So we have a tool called Verify laterals and Verify mainline. And that's going to do is check your design for errors and warn you of things. After that, you will actually size the pipe so we can look at that in the program as well. But once your pipe is sized and your valves are called out and everything, you're going to want to create schedules. So we have, tools for that are going to do it automatically as well. And then final step is to plot your designs. So now we're going to move into the importance of units and scale. So this is one of the most important aspects of how you're going to set up, basically the function between um, your design, how the symbols are scaled, how they're going to be sized on your sheets. This is a very important thing that we need to discuss. So making sure that you understand this and setting it correctly from the start is always going to be step one. If you don't, you're just going to run into problems with, symbol sizes being wrong or all kinds of different things. The sites could be, the line work could be scaled incorrectly. There's all kinds of issues that can arise from that. So again, see there's a little blue link at the bottom here. This goes to our scale and unit kind of documentation. So again, make sure you go and review that if you're not familiar. And this kind of helps display kind of the difference between um, different scale settings. So on the left, we have a 1 inch equals 10 feet scale, and on the right, we have a 1 inch equals 20 feet scale. So basically, you can see on the sheets on the left, the 1 inch equals 10 feet. You're not going to be able to see as much of the site, um, and the symbols kind of take up a little bit less room, less real estate in the design as well. Um, the 1 inch equals 20 feet. Obviously, you can see more of the site because it's a larger scale, but just kind of recognizing that the, the the sizes of the symbols, the valve callouts, those type of things are all kind of similar, between the two. So that's where our plot scale tool kind of comes in handy. It's going to automatically size these things for you based on your settings and your for well basically your setting for the plot scale. So it's an important aspect here, just kind of to understand that correlation between the two. And again, just kind of zooming in here in these two particular areas and looking at the real estate that the um, symbol sizing is going to be with different scales. It's just an important thing to keep in mind. Um, Another kind of important thing here is in our preferences. So we'll get into this in the program as well. But our irrigation preferences, we have um, a symbol scaling section as well. So it's if you we kind of set things up to kind of as a typical plan would be a 1 inch equals 20 feet or a 1 in 20 scale. We kind of scale or sized our symbols so that they look good at this scale. If you're doing, a lot of plans at a much larger scale or something, you may want to adjust your symbol scaling. So you can do that with your preferences, something to keep in mind. So kind of moving into the symbols themselves, we have a large offering of default symbols that are all ready for you kind of to use in the program, ready to go. They're going to size automatically for you. Many different heads, valves, valve callouts, all these things have symbols that already exist in the software ready for you to use. And you can see kind of the differences over here on the right of different spray symbols that we offer. We have the arc rotates on the top, which is you can see the kind of maroon color is kind of spinning around for the direction of the spray. Um, we have the symbol rotates where the whole symbol itself, the sprinkler portion of it is going to rotate. And then we have the no rotation. So it's just kind of a static symbol that kind of sits there and it does not rotate at all. And it's important to remember that symbols are just CAD blocks. So once you're comfortable with them and how they function in the software, uh, you can edit ours. You can create your own symbols, symbol families, all these different things. And those are some links that you can review to do that. Uh, Changes. So another important thing that happens, I know if you've done irrigation designs, you're going to have to do changes and revisions. Just kind of the nature of the beast. There's no getting around that. So don't worry. There's different options we offer that can help you along the way and make changes quick for you. An important one is rescale objects. So let's say the landscape architect all of a sudden requires you to use a different viewport scale or plot scale um, in your design, and you need to make some adjustments to your sheets. And oh no, I have all my symbols placed already, and I don't want to have to replace them all at this new scale. So you can go ahead and you can, in that viewport plot scale section, you can drop down that little arrow and change the scale and then hit OK. And it will pull up a little dialog box and ask you if you want to rescale the object. So it'll kind of help you rescale everything automatically. Also, same thing goes for changing symbols. Maybe something happened, you want to change the symbols in your drawing, for a certain type of head, make things look different. Um, you can certainly do that as well. It's pretty quick process. Rotary heads are a little unique, so there's a specific link for that there as well if you ever need to change rotary symbols. It's also important to review moved piped equipment and delete station. Those are helpful tools as well for revisions. Oh, and this is just kind of displaying the how to change your symbols. So you select in that little box on the left, and it'll pull up the symbol selections that are available, and you can choose a new symbol, hit OK, and it will update in your drawing. Alrighty, so shortcuts. So these are definitely very, very helpful time-saving tools that will help you lay out your heads quickly, um, changing heads when you're, changing radiuses, changing nozzle, selecting all these different things on the fly. Same thing goes with piping. Uh, you can change your classes quickly if you're using multiple classes. X-hair angle is a fun one. That one, it'll make set your angle of your pipe uh, for whichever angle that you select in the drawing. Head auto snap is a super quick one, and I mean super awesome one, and makes your drawing super quick to do the piping. It won't require you to click. Instead, you're just going to be dragging, the pipe over the top of heads, and it'll automatically connect to that head that you draw that over. So lots of cool, helpful shortcuts here. Once you get familiar with things, these are definitely going to save you lots of time. Alrighty, so before we move into the CAD portion, I just want to pause it quickly and see if there's any questions on anything that we want to take a break with really quick.
We did get one question, but it's a long multi-part question here, and so I'm typing up an answer for them. So
Okay.
you can keep going, and but everyone is welcome to get their questions in, and yeah, we'll get them all answered.
Yeah, I know we're trying to move pretty quick here. We have a lot to cover, but let us know if you guys have questions. Don't be scared. Alrighty, so we are going to move into CAD. So if you aren't familiar with CAD and its functions, we're gonna first start by taking a look at the first thing that I want to cover basically is preferences. So each of our uh, FX ribbons here have a spot for preferences. So I'm going to come over here to the irrigation ribbon, and you can see this button here. This is our irrigation preferences. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. Um, what this does is basically it's a set point, a starting point for all of your designs. There's lots of different settings here that will allow you to kind of define how things different, how they look in the drawing, um, your preferred blocks that you're going to be using for valve callouts, layer color settings, all of these textile settings are, in general preferences as well. Just all kinds of different settings here that's going to help you really dial in how you want your drawings and designs to look. Um, we won't really take a look at the other preferences right now, but we're going to kind of focus on the irrigation ones, but definitely check those out and our documentation on those as you continue to, develop these things. Um, so the first section here in our irrigation preferences is the valve callout. So like I said, we have multiple different valve callouts that you can choose from. These are all default callouts. These are also all editable. You can create your own. We even have additional attributes and things to review, so you can really just dial in these as well. So again, if you want to change these, you'll just select a different one and hit OK. Symbol scaling, we talked about this, but basically these are little kind of arrow buttons, and this is going to adjust your spray heads, rotors, and equipment. So equipment would be like anything else in your drawing, valves and those types of things. Again, you don't want to be, an important thing with preferences is you don't want to be changing these things on the fly. Um, you want to kind of find something that works for you and your team, and you want to kind of stick with it. Um, it's important to know, you know, that because you don't want to be, if you come in here and you're changing things, it's going to affect everybody in your office if you're using a shared office, server, online folder. So it's important to discuss with your team any changes that you're making, anywhere in your preferences, but specifically um, with these types of scalings and different settings. So then we can get into the drip line options. This one here is your hatch scaled at row spacing. So what that's going to do is size your hatches of the row spacing between the hatches so that they match the equipment that you're choosing in your project. So if you have a drip line with 12-inch row spacing, it's going to scale that hatch pattern at that 12 inches. So that's just nice if you want your plants to look like that. Include drip perimeter and flow calcs. Obviously, what that means is it's going to have drip line around the perimeter of your drip areas instead of it just being like a blank tubing. So it's going to use that for flow and linear feet of calculation of drip line um, in your schedules and things like that. We can get into pipe sizing options. So color code size pipe. Um, what this is going to do is after your pipe is sized, it's going to set a color to each individual pipe size. So 1 inch will have its own color, inch and a half its own color. So it's kind of helpful if you want to display that your designs are like that. Pipe callout lasso will set a layer. Oh, sorry, the pipe callout lasso is the lasso itself. So it's like if you have a 1 inch pipe, there's that little lasso that will connect to the pipe. You can toggle this off if you don't want the lasso. Call out layer per class is going to if you select it, it will make a new or put the pipe callouts on their own layer based on the class that you're using. Pipe classes here. So depending on where you are in the world, we offer, different types of pipe classes. So, set where you're at, and usually we have everything covered. But if you find something isn't there to, kind of see that you want to see, make sure to check these other ones and determine if it's there or not. If not, we have a pipe request form that you can fill out as well. So that's always helpful for us. But basically, this is going to change your classes that are available in your pipe data. Flow and pressure units, pretty self-explanatory here. It's the, what flow and pressure units the system's going to use for sizing. Here we just have gallon per minute and PSI. If you're a metric user, obviously you're going to be using some of these other combinations of different units. Then we get into these schematic irrigation preferences. These are our default list of schematic areas. You can come in here, you can add more, you can edit them, make changes to them. This is so when you're using a schematic area, we'll get into the schematics a little bit, but if you're using schematic areas, these are basically your default list that the system can pull from. So set things up for if you have typical ones and change and delete ones that you don't want to use. It's all up to you. Pipe data defaults. Again, this is the default settings for your pipe data that the system is going to use. It's the starting point for your design. So all the settings that you make here in your lateral mainline or sleeve, it's going to use this every new project that you create. It's going to pull these defaults in as you're starting point basically. So if your team never uses an inch and a, or sorry, half-inch pipe, you can go ahead, select it in the size list and remove it. And now every time that you create a new project, this list will match. So just kind of something handy there. Schedule defaults, kind of a similar idea here. How do you want your schedule to look? What do you want your schedule to show? Uh, Set your settings here. And again, this is going to be it's a default schedule that you're going to be running for your designs. So helps you kind of save a little time for having to click from all these. Okay, so after we've now that we've gone over the irrigation preferences, I want to go ahead and talk about starting a project. So I'm going to go ahead here and open the project list. Um, in this FX admin section here. So what that's going to do is it's going to pull up your project list. It's important to always, for every like real world design that you're doing, you always want to start a new project more than likely. If you go back and you're trying to reuse different project files, um, what's going to happen is you're going to create issues with, changing equipment in the project and going back to old projects. It's gonna cause lots of issues. So it's always best practice to create a new project. So what I'm gonna do here is just I click that new button and I'm gonna give it a project number. If your team has a specific numbering type of way that you want to number, make sure to use that. And then the name is, we'll just call it this. Again, this is going to preference set. It's going to let you choose which preference set you're using. You can have multiple preference sets, but so this will let you kind of choose which one you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. What that's going to do is it's going to bring up the project manager. So that's kind of this button here up in the ribbon next to the project list, but it automatically will pull it up. Here you can further set different things here. Another handy feature here is the project data button. So obviously we're doing an irrigation project. So I'm gonna go ahead and select the irrigation button. What that's gonna do is it's gonna pull up the irrigation manager for us. So we're basically ready here we have just created a project. So now we have our new project. The project is now ready. Before we actually get into adding any equipment or replacing anything, I want to go ahead and XREF my line work into this drawing. So to do that, I'm going to open my XREF manager and use we like to use our tool, the FXREF tool. So that is going to pull up a list basically of all the files that you have available. You'll go ahead and select what file you want to XREF in and then click open. This is important to review. If I had set this to inches, you can see the line work changes sizes and they don't match. So it's going to kind of warn you about that. And what we want to do is just double check that our units are correct. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that. So that's about a 8-foot, parking stall there. So that looks correct. After that, I'm going to go ahead and select OK. So we have our line work in here, our base line work basically. What's nice about the XREF, obviously, if you can get changes from a landscape architect and update your XREF, and it'll update in the click of a button basically. Instead of you having to, if this was all individual line work, it's just a big mess trying to make changes and update those. So always use the XREF tool to put your line work in. The next step here, after we've gone in and we've input our XREF our line work in, we're going to determine our sheet setup. So what size sheet do you want to use? Do you have are you required to use a specific sheet size, 11 by 17, 24 by 36? What size are you required to use? And the site may determine that as well. Um, so it's important to kind of think about this at the starting point as well, because what this is going to do is going to help you choose your plot scale and viewport scale as well. So we can kind of take a look here. And what I'm going to do is select our scale tool here. You can see we have no scale set. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is drop down this little arrow and we'll just choose 1" equals 10 feet for now. This is going to ask me if I want to set the active viewport scale. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And you can see kind of on this sheet, maybe it's a little too zoomed in. We're not really seeing what we want. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that again and change it to 1 to 20. 1" equals 20 feet. And we'll reset it there. So yeah, we can, see the site a little better here. And I think that's looking good. So this is kind of like again, it's an important step here to set your sheet and your viewport and plot scale, because it's ultimately going back to that, it's going to determine your symbol size and scaling. Um, and you might even need multiple sheets, so you might have, match lines and multiple sheets. Always just different setup things that you need to consider with your designs at the start, make things easier. So now that we have our sheet set up, we're going to go back into CAD or model space here. And I'm going to open up the irrigation ribbon. You can see kind of the layout here that we have is going to kind of works left to right, right? So it's kind of that workflow that we talked about. You're setting up, this is your irrigation manager. If you select it, this will pop up. So you're setting up your equipment. You may need to use a schematic, then you're going to get into, placing your equipment, and so on. So we'll kind of talk about these as we use them, but an important feature here is if you ever have a question on a tool or, what something does, is go ahead and hover your mouse over it. It'll kind of bring up some information on it, but also if you select F1, it will bring you to our documentation for that particular tool. So you can see I did it for the irrigation manager. So we have some videos here and different information. Again, just make sure you review all of our documentation. It's very helpful. And that's a quick way to access it from CAD. So after that, now we can get into sort of the irrigation manager itself and how it functions. So first of all is we have these different sections here. We have a section for heads, valves, auxiliary equipment, and drip. So these are your different types of basic equipment that you're going to be using in your design. Also moving into your source data and pipe data. Again, this pipe data list is started from your preference pipe data defaults, but this is on a project basis. So this is tied into that project that we created, and you can make all kinds of changes here and do whatever you want to it or whatever you need to do it to it for the project specific. It will not affect your preference pipe data defaults. So this is kind of where you hone in your pipe information for your design on a per project basis. Going into source data, this is usually, it's not necessarily something that you have to do from the start, but it's something that can be helpful if you know where it is, the size and flow, size that's available. You can even select, a manufacturer for the meter if you're using a meter. We have different types of these water sources, a point of connection, if you're tying into like an existing irrigation main line or something, custom, just different ones that you may need to use depending on the design. So for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and say we have a 1.5 meter. You can see here, it's giving me my flow available 75 gallons per minute. Um, you can adjust your sizes, obviously, but also your safe flow. 75% is kind of what we, you know, that was or realized was a kind of standard, but you're able to come in here and adjust this to, increase the flow through the meter if you so wish. You have your ability to set your service line length and elevation changes. So, you know, um, these are important things because they're going to ultimately affect your pressures and things like that. Service line classes as well. Important to get, make sure you set what is there in the field because this is all data that it's going to be using when you're sizing your system. So after you've determined all that, you can come in and say we have 120 psi available. Fill out your information, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to place it in the drawing and kind of find where, we'll just say my meter is over here for now. You can give it an attribute. You can, if you have multiple in the drawing, you can say M1, M2, label them how you like, basically. So after we have our source placed, we can come in here back to the irrigation manager and we're going to take a look at adding equipment. So what I did here was selected new in the heads section. So this is going to pull up a list of heads that are available. We have sprays, obviously, rotaries, turf rotors, and so on. So this goes the same thing for drip equipment and valves. It's going to pull up a different list. For now, I'm going to go ahead and say add my spray head, and I'll just select one randomly here. We have obviously lots of different heads that are already pre-built into the program. So this is the list of models for that head that I selected. Maybe I want to go ahead and add this head specifically to the project. This is going to bring in the design pressure. So this is an important part. You want to choose your design pressure that's appropriate for the equipment. And you can see how it's affecting my radius and flow as I go through these different options. So, choosing this correctly for what's available at your site, maybe your site doesn't have a lot of pressure, so you want to kind of tune it down to something or just knowing this design pressure basic setting from the start is an important part. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay to that. Again, lots of symbols. Those are arc rotates, symbol rotates. Obviously, we talked about all of these. So these are just different options. Go ahead and I'm just going to add these ones for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and I wanted to quickly show, we'll go ahead and add a shrub rotary. So a rotary is obviously a different type of head than a fixed spray head. So knowing what you're going to use and where is important. Again, just adding these from the list, choosing your correct design pressure. And then something I wanted to mention was we do now have symbol rotate options for rotaries as well. So it's pretty handy here if you weren't aware of that already. So once we have heads added to our manager, we can add other things like valves and drip and things like that. But just kind of sake of time here, I'm not going to do that right now. So we can get into placing these heads now. Well, I guess before I get into placing, I did want to talk about schematic irrigation. So I'm not going to dive super deep into this, but schematic irrigation is very helpful for creating, if you don't want to lay out, maybe it's like a design development period of your design. Maybe you don't want to lay all the heads out, but you want to kind of get like an idea for mainline sizing or costs. And and aspects of that so that you can use basically our schematic tool here to place hatches in the drawing and place mainline and pipe and size your mainline based on these schematics because these all have different, you know, precipes and pressure requirements for them set here, and they have costs. So it's a really good tool, if you want to, do a design development period, a schematic period of your design before having to lay everything out. So you can kind of go to the client and say, look, we're putting turf rotors in this orange section, and we're putting, large turf rotors in this orange section spaced at this, and we're putting smaller space turf rotors here, and get an approval process. It's a very helpful tool for that. So again, check our documentation for this. That's kind of all I'm going to speak about it for now. Going to go back here into my irrigation manager, and like I said, we're going to get into placing some of these heads. So I'm going to go ahead and place some turf sprays. So you have a couple options for that. You can go up here and you can place via these buttons here. What I'm going to do is I like to go and double click the head that I want to use from the manager. I just find it to be a helpful way to do that. You go ahead and you'll choose your nozzle. And you can see we're ready to go ahead and start placing heads into the drawing. So kind of just determining where I may want to use spray heads, thinking about that, what makes sense. This is obviously a very large area here, but maybe we want to use some sprays over in here. So what I did was I selected where I want that head, and then I'm able to choose the next point of my arcs. And so now I've gone ahead and I've placed that as like at a quarter kind of there. So remember when I talked about our keyboard shortcuts, instead of having to go and place each head like that, we have some helpful tools here. So we have the copy along polyline tool, we have the copy along line tool. Also remembering, adjusting radiuses, adjusting which nozzle you're using. So if you type K when you're placing heads, it will pull up this list. You don't need to do it to use the shortcuts, but this is just here for reference. So for example, here I'm hitting E, and that's bumping up my head to the next radius nozzle, basically. If you want to adjust your the radius of the head itself, you can use A and D. So that's not changing the nozzle; it's changing that radius reduction. You can see here we have a percentage in the command line, so it's always important to check your command line, see what things are doing. Hit the tilde key, and that's going to tell me like a foot. Now it tells me of my radius reduction. So now I'm down to 13 feet here. And now let's get into, oops, I'm going to do that. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to place a head here, and then I'm going to use C. So I just hit C in the command line. So now that is going to pull up our copy along polyline tool. So now it's asking me to select my polyline. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you're basically dragging along the head. You can use those same Q and E buttons to change your nozzles as you're placing these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that there and kind of bump them up here. It's just a helpful tool to kind of quickly place these heads around your drawing. Another important thing here is if you can see they're all set at exactly the spacing. These are set exact spacing right now. If I hit K again, kind of look at these different keyboard commands now. If I hit W, it'll change my exact versus best fit. So it kind of lets you kind of dial in exactly where you want those heads, but it's not going to be an exactly, 10-foot spaced head there. Um, so now that we've gone over placing some heads, we'll go ahead and kind of get into some other tools here. Um, we can take a look at another important one here is circuiting. So after you've gone ahead and you've placed, all of your zones into a drawing, if you don't know how you're going to pipe things, like based on flow wise, the circuiting tool is great. It's going to help you determine your flow. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is basically click new here, and I'm going to draw a polyline around these heads. If you had other types of equipment here, the list would include those as well. You could say all heads or just the sprays or drip or whatever is you've encircled in that circuit zone. But I'm gonna go ahead and click OK. So you can see the heads that I've laid out. The flow is 27.83. So that kind of tells me, okay, maybe I wanted all my zones to be, to be below 20. So I can go ahead and I can adjust my circuit zone and then hit this refresh button, and that will tell me, my flow for the what's encompassed within it. So it's just a helpful tool if you don't know how you're going to be piping your equipment. Um, Make sure to check this out. There are some other functions. I'm not going to go into too depth, you know, in too deep here. So check out our documentation on that as well. Um, Now that we've gone and placed some heads and we've kind of figured out how we want to basically zone them. I know we don't have a lot in this drawing right now, but I'm going to get into sort of uh, piping. So we'll start with lateral piping. Um, just clicking this lateral piping tool right here. Um, what this is going to do is you can select a head that will connect your head to the pipe. And then instead of clicking each head, like I said, oops, sorry, had a little bit of misclick there. Um, you can go ahead and use the H button, which is going to um, allow you to, and you can see I missed one, I'm being sloppy, but every yellow circle around a head is one that's been connected to. So if you don't like how something is connected, you can hit U to undo. Um, and basically, I'm not clicking anything, I'm just kind of dragging it along. So it's a helpful tool, again, with your piping. Again, there's K for keyboard commands here. If you want to use multiple classes in your design, it's important to, um, as you're piping, you are going to select one, two, three, whichever class you have set in your irrigation manager in your pipe data. So you can see we have multiple options available. Going to go ahead and just add one here just so we can see. But basically, if I hit 2 now, what that's going to do is now I am drawing with a new class, so of pipe. So just helpful, tool there to keep in mind. After you've, done your lateral piping, I'm gonna switch drawings here a little bit so we can take a look at a few things at a more completed design. So let's say you've gone through and you've piped all your equipment, you've laid out your main line. Again, that's the same as lateral piping in the terms of like how it functions and laying it out in your drawing. But um, what's important here is now that we've laid out all of our heads and pipe and we've determined everything zoned, the next tool that we would use is the valve callout tool. So what I'm going to do is just remove a couple of these really quick. And so the valve callout tool is up here in your ribbon, and you can select that and now select a valve. So it's what's going to happen is it's going to pull up a list. First, it's going to determine which controller you want to use, if you have controllers in your drawing or if you want to add one. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and put these on C just for now. This will also tell you the existing list that's available that we've already called out in the drawing. Um, I'm going to go ahead and say, I want this one to be C1. Um, so placing valve callouts, you have a few different options. You can, again, select and place and choose where you want it. And also, once it's been placed, you can see down on the command line, you have a no arrow option. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. So what that did is it created the station number here that matches. And basically, instead of having this leader. So it's kind of helpful if you want to adjust how you're laying out these callouts. An important feature with the valve callouts that we've now introduced is, let's say I just selected valve callout C5, and now all of a sudden something happened. I want to change all of my valve callouts to be starting at C100 for whatever reason. So now that there's a gap in between which callouts, the station numbers, this little button down here has popped up. So if I select this, it will renumber all valves in this list here. So you can see it's automatically changing 100, changing five and up because I selected 5. So really helpful tool there for numbering your valves if you have changes. And that's a new feature that's just been implemented, I think, last week. So something to keep in mind there as you're working on things. I'm gonna go ahead and just label a couple more of these really quickly. After you've called out all your valves, you're gonna say, oh, great, yeah, let's get your pipe sized. Well, important step you missed here is obviously to verify your design. So what I've done is I'm going to select the Verify Laterals tool. Again, it's right next to your pipe, just kind of going in order here. And it's going to check your drawing for errors. So it's going to look for certain things like unpiped heads and things with, overlapping pipe intersections that don't have pipe hops placed in them. And you can locate things to make things, quick to find in your drawing. So you can say, oops, mispiping that head. I'm going to go ahead and just repipe that. I'm going to go ahead and run verify again and figure out where that verify laterals and figure out where that um, missing pipe hops were. And we actually, well, see, I created another issue here with a circular pipe error. So what this means is that I've connected that, looped it around. Oh, I can see. So if I highlight station and I select that, I accidentally connected these two valves. So that's no bueno, obviously. We did not need to connect those two valves. What I'm going to go ahead and do is just delete this one here. So again, always verify your designs. Very, very important step. Um, while we wait for that for 1 second, let's have another pipe here that's not, or emitter here that's not connected. Um, so you can, like I said, you can go ahead and insert your pipe hops automatically. Instead of actually going and doing it, it'll do it for you and it'll show you where those are going to be placed. So after you verified your laterals, you drop down this little arrow and click Verify Mainline. Um, Obviously, we have not sized our lateral pipe yet. That's okay, but uh-oh, missed a valve call out. So where is that? It's in between here. So it's we can call it, we'll call it D11. And you can see in this list, D11 is available. If D11 was not available, so it would warn me basically and allow me to increment other valve numbers automatically. So once you've verified your design, you can go ahead and click Size Lateral Pipe. Down on the command line, you can see we have a you can either select valve or click all. So what I'm going to do for right now is select a valve. Um, there's lots of different settings here. An important one is choosing, what is your velocity setting, pressure variation setting, something that we see people get tripped up on a little bit. This is just a lot. You're telling the system how much you want to allow it to lose when sizing. So if I kind of scoot it down here, um, this one's not going to do it, but if you had an issue with it would losing more than you're allowing, this would turn red. And we can actually probably find one that's going to do that really quick. Um, Maybe not. Okay. Well, either way, you have lots of great control here if you are sizing each individual valve on its own. You can set things like elevations. Oops. Um, you can change the valve size and you can see how that is affecting the pressure required, the pressure losses through the valves. All these are live live calculations. You can see if I adjust my velocity down to 2 feet per second, it's adjusting that pipe sizing. Um, and so obviously a zone by zone basis is ideal, but if you want, you can also size all. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So what I did was just click the space bar. You can right click and it will bring this dialog up. Obviously you don't have as much control, but I'm gonna go ahead and click OK. And so it's gonna run through here and go through and size your pipe automatically for you, basically for your design and how you've done it. It's placing all the pipe hops automatically. It's inputting the flow into those callouts automatically for you. Um, it's 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 working, basically um, to do all this automatically on the fly, running through those friction loss and velocity tables and your settings and determining that as well. I'm going to go ahead and click size mainline. This is another similar function here as size laterals, but we have options for single valve at a time, multiple valve at a time. You can kind of determine how much flow you want to provide if you're doing multiple valves operating at a time. It's going to kind of give you a preview of your mainline sizing. If you want to use elevation data, this is all stuff you can review in our mainline sizing documentation as well. Just for the sake of time here, I'm going to go ahead and click no to the, oh, sorry. I wanted to say yes. And so I'm just going to say yes to continue anyways. But basically, it warned me that these valves had not had their lateral sized because they weren't actually connected to anything, which kind of an important feature there as well. So it's basically the same thing as the size laterals. It's going through, it's adding your it's going through all the calculations and sizing the main line and everything. It's going to pull up your critical analysis. Important feature here, it's going to run through basically your design analysis of flow available. It's going to give you the critical station, and it's going to tell you how much residual pressure is and all your pressure loss calculations through the system for that zone, for that critical station. After you've sized your pipe, we can get down into the scheduling. So kind of running a little bit lower on time here, but I'm going to go ahead and place an irrigation schedule. This is obviously going to automatically schedule everything for you. So you don't have to do this manually. It's going to calculate everything for you. You can see we have that. There's a setting in here for pipe uh, class or listing the pipe per size, those kind of features. Um, Another great quick tool here that I can run through is the valve schedule. This is great for reviewing the sizing data that we just ran through, and reviewing your zones and checking, friction losses and making sure that you don't have a valve loss that's extravagant or something and you need to go back and change things. It's going to show your precip rate, all these different tools. We have lots of different scheduling options, watering schedule. Um, you know, Go ahead and use these, become familiar with them, uh, and yeah, and then you can go ahead and create your sheets. Like I said, we'll have your sheets and then plot your design ultimately. So kind of running out of time here a little bit, but did we have any kind of last minute questions of things that we needed to run through?
Well, we definitely had a lot of questions. I'm not sure how many we need to kind of revisit. A couple of recurring themes, but a lot of them just being um, understandable. A little bit of a lack of knowledge of everything we had. A lot of questions, basically saying, can it do this? Can it do that? Can it do this? And actually,
Sure.
yes, and more, pretty much across the board. You know, so this it's amazing what can happen with, I mean, we've been doing this for 25 years, and so we've kind of accounted for pretty much anything and everything. Some really good, like, kind of wish list requests. For instance, someone's saying from the verify dialog box, be nice to be able to highlight more than one color at once. You don't have to wait for the dialog box to pop up again just to highlight the next issue. Um, Noted, also a lot of themes of just process and standards. Um, Such as, of course, the classic of drawing cleanup, but also understanding your equipment and understanding, for instance, that the difference between a matched precipitation rotor and a standard rotor. Um, you know, um, there's a lot to know, of course, in irrigation, and we do what we can, but fundamentally you do still need to learn a lot of the basics of irrigation essentially elsewhere, like you mentioned, Cole. There's a lot. It's a very vast subject, and I appreciate people coming to us, wanting to learn irrigation design. But we have to admit there is the fundamentals of irrigation design, and what different equipment type categories are and what they mean, that still kind of need to be done elsewhere. Can't quite teach every last bit of irrigation design just through our software, but believe me, we do try. um, but let's see. I mean, but again, lots of just really great questions and still coming in. Like, uh, um, I'm sorry, auto placement of labels, having them automatically, not have to click on them to reposition them. Of course, that would be a great thing. We'd love to add that. We will, see what some tools offer that we can do that. Um, you name it. Really just want to basically just say thank you to everybody. Such a great group. We had 150 people signed up for this. Well over 100 showed up. So appreciative of you guys, learning the software, diving into it. I just want to reassure you, we have your back. You're always welcome to reach out for tech support. A lot of these questions are answered via our trainer or our documentation. It's all there for you. You can go ahead and just ask our intelligent assistant Leah anything you want. You can ask us anything you want. So please know that you can always reach out to us, and certainly let us know what more you'd like in another webinar, because clearly there's going to be another one coming. We're going to need to do kind of an intermediate irrigation. But that being said, I'm going to wish everybody on your way on this beautiful Friday the 13th. I hope you're doing something romantic and beautiful tomorrow. It is Valentine's Day. So have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time.